One of the most important lists you've already seen and worked with, the chart of accounts, is also a list. Let's go ahead and open that again though so we can see some of the tools we have for organizing and manipulating lists in QuickBooks. I like working with this list because it has so many entries in it. It makes it a little bit easier to see what we're doing. I'll go to List and Chart of Accounts, and here it is. Now some of these things you'll probably be familiar with if you've ever used Excel. For example, one of the things I can do is simply resize columns. Now we notice right now that there's a lot of room for the name of the account. If I move all the way over to the right side of the screen, the next column with the little lightning bolt on it is actually for online transactions or reconciliation. So there's a lot of space. If I move my mouse up into the header section between any two fields or two columns, I get a double-headed arrow. I can then press and hold my left mouse button and drag left or right to resize those columns. In this case, I'll move it over so it only takes up about half of the screen instead of a majority of the screen. So we can resize columns anytime we need to. Another option that we have though is the ability to sort. And I'm not sure if you've taken a look at it, but currently we have all of our accounts. We have account numbers, we have the names of the accounts, we have different types of accounts, and you'll see that right now they are grouped. Fixed assets first, other current liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. Then we have other expenses and non-posting at the very bottom. If I click on any one of these column headers, it will sort by that particular field. For example, on the far right, I have balances. Currently, we only have a couple of balances, about $600 for furniture and also $600 in my opening equity. If I simply click at the top again where it says balance total, you can see that I now get a little arrow. This tells me if we're sorting by that column and if it's sorted ascending or descending. Currently, it's in ascending, so all of my zero balances come first, and the balances that have $600, my furniture and opening equity, are at the bottom. If I click again, it toggles that to be the opposite, where now the largest numbers are on the top with the zeros on the bottom. If you ever want to return to the default, you need to come all the way over to the left-hand side, and you'll see this little diamond in the very first column. By clicking on the diamond, that resorts the list based on its original criteria. And here we are back with all of it organized basically by type and then by account number. While we can sort by using the options of clicking and getting ascending or descending, I can actually manually sort my list as well. Now there's a couple of tricks to this. First of all, you have to have the list sorted as it originally was, and I did that by clicking on that little diamond. Now you'll see that the little diamond on the left has gone away, letting me know it's in the original sort order. The next thing I can do is I can actually drag and drop things that I want, but I do have to keep them in the same groupings. In other words, if I come down to all of my income accounts, I have 3 different kinds of training income: CBT, virtual, and classroom. They're all income accounts. If I click on classroom training to grab a hold of it, move to the left, get a 4-headed arrow, then I can press and hold my left mouse button and I could drag classroom training between CBT and virtual training and let it go. This is a manual sort because it's actually putting it out of order. Based on my account numbers, 42,630, which is classroom training, should come after 42,620, which is virtual training. But if I prefer to see it this way, I can do drag and drop as long as I follow the rules. If you're working with multiple users, other people might be working on lists at the same time you're trying to access them. If you feel like maybe you opened the company file and somebody has manipulated the list, for example, maybe somebody else is putting these accounts in while you're trying to work with them, one option that you have is to right-click, and you can always choose to refresh. Now refresh is grayed out for me because right now I'm not in multi-user mode. Also remember that these menu items may not be available if they're not applicable. In other words, if there's nothing to refresh, then a menu item might appear grayed out. If it was though, I could just click refresh to update my information. Don't forget there are actually 3 buttons down here, one for the account, one for activities, and one for reports. If I click on the account button, I see all kinds of options for some of the things I've been doing, including creating accounts, editing accounts, deleting accounts, making accounts inactive, and even sorting them. Right now it's telling me that the list is currently in the hierarchical view, but there's also something called the flat view. If you look just above this pop-up menu and look back to our income accounts, you'll recall that we have training income as a general account, and then CBT, classroom, and virtual training as sub-accounts. Currently, those accounts are indented. If we choose the flat view, you can see that that goes away. It basically takes away all of the appearance of sub-accounts, even though technically they are still sub-accounts. What you will notice is that it actually combines them. If we now look at these particular entries, we can see that we have 42,600 as training income, and then it's kind of combined the master account, 42,600, followed by a colon, and then the sub-account. Some people prefer to work this way, other people prefer the hierarchical view. I kind of like the hierarchical view, so I'm going to go ahead and change that back. The last thing that we see from this list or from a right click that we can do that's very helpful is we can actually customize the columns. Most of your lists will have default columns or fields, and most of the time they're perfectly good. For example, in my chart of accounts, I can see the name and the account numbers, the type of account, the balance total, and even if it needs to be reconciled. But if I click on Customize Columns, I can see that there are more possibilities, one of which is the tax line. If I work with tax lines, or if I'm trying to clean up my QuickBooks account and ensure that all of my accounts have a tax line, I might want to add this. I simply choose it on the left, click the Add button, and if I want to rearrange the order, I can do so on the right-hand side by selecting the field and moving it up or down. I'll go ahead and put it right underneath the name, which means it will follow the name. Say OK. And now we can see all of the accounts that have and have not been assigned a tax line. This could be very useful information, especially if I'm getting ready for the end of the quarter or the end of the year. You know, looking at a list really is just an overview of what you have, but there are a couple of other things that you can do in addition to just working with the list itself. For example, if I move to the top of this list, I have a furniture account. If I double-click on that account, it actually opens the account register. This would give me the opportunity to either view different activity that's gone on or to create new entries. I'll go ahead and close this and let you know that sometimes you'll see two different things. When you select certain accounts, like furniture, which is an asset, you'll see a register. But what if I came down and chose an expense such as utilities? If I double-click Utilities, now I actually see a quick report. This quick report doesn't currently have any activity in it, but what it will ultimately show me are all of the transactions that are attributed to my utilities expense account. The option that you get, again, depends on the type of account that you choose when you double-click in the list. The very last thing I want to say about lists is that sometimes viewing it on the screen isn't enough. Remember that you can always print all of your lists. And we can do that either by going down to the bottom and choosing Reports or by printing it directly from this option. The activities allow us to print a list as well. In this instance, I'll go down to the bottom, go to the Accounts button, and you can see the second one up from the top is to print the list. I'm not actually going to do this, but I just wanted to let you know that all of your lists are printable, so if you want hard copies or you want to share them that way, it's an option. Lists provide the basis for many of the options that you get while you're using QuickBooks, and especially QuickBooks forms like invoices. We can see that we had customer messages as well as terms and a variety of things that we would use on those types of forms. They also track primary business components like the customers, the products, the vendors, the assets. In fact, it even forms the basis like our chart of accounts, which is what drives all of the accounting that we do in QuickBooks. So knowing how to use lists, how to enhance them by sorting, changing fields, and all of those tools are really important for your use of QuickBooks as well.